Registry. Then you'll also hear from Sheila Fraser, who was then the Auditor General, and Chrétien, who was then the Prime Minister. Have a listen to this.
All we're asking of firearms owners is to fill out 2 cards and mail them in.
The predicted cost to taxpayers, $2 million, period. Cut to yesterday. And an updated prediction from Auditor General Sheila Fraser.
And now will cost significantly more than that, up to $1 billion or more.
Yes, there was cost overrun. It was more than we expected, but the system is in place, and it's a good system, and it's very good for Canadian citizens.
more than we expected. Yeah, I guess so. $2 million to over $1 billion. Rod, do you see any kind of historical parallels here? What's going on now?
Well, of course. And another historical parallel, if you remember, Sheila Fraser came out with a report and determined, because she was the Auditor General, and determined that the Liberal Party at the time misled Parliament on the out-of-control cost. They lied to Parliament, and that was officially declared by the Auditor General. So it's all the same pattern, unfortunately.
Colleagues, we've now had 6 meetings at this committee at clause by clause. I'm going to ask colleagues to indulge me for a bit because I have a few things that I want to get on the record. The first of all, what I would like to say is that in politics, as in life, trust is easily broken, but it's extremely hard to repair. The way this amendment landed, it's frankly been a complete and total abuse of process. Again, the cart before the horse, so that we as a committee could study something that's already part of the law. That's exactly what we are being asked to do at this committee. It is a proposed amendment to a very consequential bill, and now we're being asked to do it after it's been proposed, again, having had no chance to speak to Canadians, having had no chance to speak to our constituents or any affected group. So you can see why there's a strong reaction to this bill. The way it has been rolled out has honestly, I think I've said enough on that point.
Be dealing with an ever-evolving list, but we've heard from some people who study this and write about this that say it's been done in such a broad way, it's going to essentially capture every deer hunting rifle that's out there, every moose hunting rifle that's out there.
Very antique bolt-action and even single-shot rifles. There's really an awful lot on this list, and it's attached to a bill that was originally about handguns.
Last week had proposed an amendment that effectively would expand their ban in C-21 to virtually every semi-automatic rifle out there.
So what they're looking to propose is an implementation or a national freeze on handguns. And I don't know, like I say, I don't know what a freeze means. I think what they are looking to do is prohibit, is my understanding.
To be able to join you to provide an overview of 2 actions Alberta has taken in order to assert our constitutional jurisdiction and protect firearms owners from an increasingly hostile federal government. First, in 2020, the federal government issued a ban on more than 1,500 models of firearms. Then, in October of this year, the federal government implemented what they characterize as a, quote, freeze on the transfer of handguns, end quote, an action that bans new handgun ownership. And then third, a month later, at the last minute, the federal government tabled amendments to Bill C-21 that ban shotguns, rifles used by hunters, farmers, and target shooters. Now, taken all together, these actions will criminalize hundreds of thousands of Canadians overnight, the majority of which reside in Western Canada. And it's becoming increasingly clear that the federal Liberal government is pursuing a strategy to ban all legal firearms ownership. The federal Liberals scared Canadians by describing some firearms as, their terminology was, quote, assault style, end quote, even though they knew that the only difference between these firearms and conventional rifles and shotguns is the styling. They also told Canadians repeatedly that these measures were not targeting law-abiding hunters and farmers. And this lie was laid bare by the amendments to C-21. Their actions are targeting Western Canadians for a reason. This is about shoring up their own political support. To do so, they seek to divide us. Western Canadians versus Eastern Canadians, rural Canadians versus urban Canadians. And Albertans have had enough. So today, we are taking action. First, as Alberta's Attorney General, I have directed that the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service take over the handling of charges involving the Firearms Act starting January 1st, 2023. Currently, the federal government handles cases involving the Federal Firearms Act. Provinces have the constitutional jurisdiction to handle federal criminal law charges, including charges under the Firearms Act. I've sent a letter to the Federal Minister of Justice as of this morning advising him that Alberta is taking this jurisdiction back. Alberta's Crown prosecutors will now determine whether or not to pursue charges under the Firearms Act, not federal government lawyers.
The 1960 Bill of Rights is still a law of this land. I mean, we have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is very important. But the Bill of Rights says very explicitly that Canadians have the right to life, liberty, security of the person, and also the right to enjoyment of property that cannot be deprived except with due process of law. And so if the government, under the Governor and Council, are they bound by the Bill of Rights when they come up with policies to confiscate firearms? Are they bound by the due process of law in the Canadian Bill of Rights when depriving people of the enjoyment of their property?
So the Government of Canada has circumvented the Canadian Bill of Rights, lawfully obtained property, by making that lawfully obtained property now prohibited and unlawful. That would be the fair way.
Hey, man, I'm tired of this shit. Tired of this shit altogether. Tired of our government. Tired of mainstream media. Tired of a whole bunch of shit. Welcome, everybody, to the Unacceptables podcast. I think the only question remaining here is how many people can I piss off in this stream tonight? So I'm going to bring Jay in. Maybe he'll keep me on a leash tonight. Jay, are you ready? All right, let's roll you in here.
Jay, good evening, everybody. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, seed stock is looking great. I've got a 96% propagation rate on my seeds, and the nice thing about that is that I collected these tomato seeds from my best tomato plant last year. All the tomato seeds I planted last year came from the best tomato plant from the year before. And now on year 3, I've got a 96% propagation rate, and they're thriving at 69 degrees. So they are very well tempered.
Good job, Jay. That's for those of you at home who don't know. Number one, keep in mind in the stream, for the most part, I'll usually be the darkness, and Jay will usually be the light. Just keep that in mind. But on that note, for those of
We're
you
gonna
at
sing
home,
Leather and Lace one of these days, a duet.
Oh, don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. For those of you at home who don't know, 96% propagation in anything is incredibly successful and good. So good job on you. And also to explain for people, to dumb it down a little bit, when you have a tomato plant you've grown and you harvest the seeds from that plant in your environment, and then you grow up tomato plants from that seed that you harvested again, they're more accustomed to the environment. They've acclimatized themselves to the soil conditions, the environment, to all the different factors that are going to either increase or decrease the plant's capabilities and production. So when you get them used to your environment, especially with a thicker skinned tomato, you turn something from what it was to something it was supposed to be in your environment. So stick with it. Don't, I always tell people, like, I just talk to, generally speaking, if you get a tomato plant and you like the tomatoes that come off of it, save some of the seeds, do it, you look it up, it's easy, or just, do what I do. You just cut slices and let them dry in the sun and then harvest the seeds. It's easy. Save the seeds, plant those the next year, like germinate them. There's all kinds of easy ways to do it. And then plant those tomatoes. And then by the 3rd year, you should have pretty much what I would say is the best that tomato's going to get, within reason. I mean, obviously, there's people who will hybridize tomatoes and do different things with them. I've done a bunch of cool stuff like that. But
yeah, I've got cucumber watermelons. I've got 2 years of those cross-pollinated, and this year I'm actually going to graft cucumber onto one from those same seeds. I'm going to graft some cucumber onto one of my watermelon plants and some watermelon onto one of my cucumber plants, and just see kind of what we can get out of that year on year. See what kind of end result comes out of it. Maybe a seedless cucumber. I mean, that would be awesome, right?
How are you guys doing out there tonight? How's everybody feeling? How are you enjoying this polar vortex we just suffered here in Canada? It was the Russian polar vortex, and it was incredibly bad. We had lows of -6.
Yeah.
Oh, you had -10. Holy shit! You're kidding.
Yeah,
in Canada? In Canada, you had -10 in Canada, in northern Canada. Crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The climate change is just out of hand here. We better stop producing oil at this point because it's just crazy.
And growing food.
Oh wait, isn't it global? No wait, isn't it global warming? Isn't that what's supposed to happen? So why is the planet cooling down, Jay? Can you explain?
They abandoned global warming because it made them sound like a bunch of assholes too often.
Exactly.
And so they just switched to straight up climate change. And you know what the other smart thing is there? All scientists realize there is climate change. So if you say who doesn't believe in climate change, well, anybody who's stupid enough to think that the weather is exactly the same every year. But but everybody else believes in climate change. What they don't attach is who believes in anthropogenic climate change. That number's a lot lower than 97%, right? So it's
absolutely. But the other thing to keep in mind,
salad.
Yeah, but the other thing to keep in mind is that the mass majority of the population has about a 13-second attention span. So if you tell them repeatedly over and over all the time, and you're being programmed and told to, you're being told to tell people to program them all the time that climate change is bad and we got to stop producing, petroleum vehicles and all this shit, then they will believe you. And they will believe it's their fault. And it is a sort of a form of psychological breakdown. They're going to keep telling you something is something or something is true, even if you know it's not true, until the point that you admit it's true. And when that happens, you're broken, people. You are broken, by the way.
Yeah. And at worst, it's a tool for absolute enslavement, and at best, it's just distraction to distract you from something else. That's that either you should be paying attention to or that they don't want you to, right? Like for instance, Falcon 9, we're coming up on the 100th consecutive mission.
That's right.
Landing perfectly with surplus fuel on 100. At current time, there is something breaking our atmosphere and going into space every 3.8 days right now. And in 2 years, that will be daily. That's called an interplanetary species, right? We've got bigger fish to fry than which fucking bathroom people go in to take a piss. And, who can fucking be a swimmer and who they can be a swimmer against, and men not going to men's jails and bullshit.
And
what are the aliens thinking right now? What are the aliens thinking? In 10 fucking years, the news today will reach 5 solar systems. 10 years. So the same people saw that the first thing we broadcast into space was Adolf Hitler in 1938 at the opening of the Berlin Games. And that was the first thing that we broadcast into space. Fucking Hitler. Now fast forward 100 years. 100 fucking years.
It's come full cycle.
They're looking at us now and they're going, what the fuck? Now they think they're hermaphrodites? Like, no, you idiots. You have chromosomes. Count the fucking chromosomes. You have 2 kinds, not 3 and not 1, for fuck's sake. The aliens are watching this and they're like, the fuck is wrong with you people?
Exactly. Men are men. See, I told you at the start of the stream, the only question left was how many people could I piss off in the stream? And so far, we're off to
I'll piss them all off.
I'll
piss them all off.
And so far, all we've established is that men are men and women are women.
Yeah.
And
the weather is not identical.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the weather is not identical year on year like a computer simulation.
Exactly.
Because it's fractal. It's fractal.
Imagine that. Imagine science, Jay. Imagine actually unbiased, non-partisan science. Imagine that. It's a concept. Lost on.
Oh, you guys gotta check out Viva Frei right now. I'm telling you, Viva Frei has had just the interviews the last 4 or 5 days. Like he broke through the glass ceiling and he's getting the big guns every day now. Barnes is over there feeling left out because he hasn't been on the stream in like 4 days, or he's in Cabo or something. You never know. Likes to fish, I think. Anyway, go check out Viva. He's getting the real deal McNeil right now. You heard it here first.
There you go. Heather has made it clear, by the way, in the chat that she doesn't want us to piss her off. And thank you, Heather, for reminding us that you're really the only one in the stream at this point that we could piss off, besides, I don't know who that is. But somebody at some point might watch us. And I think in general, we're speaking of not people watching us, but more people who might watch this and think, what the fuck did he just say? And be butthurt. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. Jay, I want you to, if you don't mind, we started on Tuesday, folks, covering Bill C-21, which was the gun control ban, the gun control bill, rather, liberal proposed gun control bill. And we poked as many holes as you could in Swiss cheese in it. So we want to poke a few more holes in it and sort of close off a little bit. So Jay, I'm going to give this the window to you.
I just want to make it clear for everybody, timeline wise. The reason you haven't heard a whole bunch about it is because Parliament just went back into session on the 29th of January. So there has only been a couple of days for people to, so that, we won't hear probably any new news on C-21 for a bit. So we're not skipping over that or negligent in any way. We're waiting until they sit down and talk again, and then we'll know what they're saying.
So don't judge us, more or less. Go fuck yourselves.
And
Jay,
don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, I hate you because you're beautiful, but I'm allowed because we're friends. So, Jay, so you had a clip to roll. Do you want to start with that, or do you want to do a little preamble for that?
Yeah, you bet. I will go find the guy. He have the lavender tie. Me, I play that one.
I can't wait to see what the Liberals have to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barton. Thank you for being here voluntarily today. I appreciate it very much. And I want to start by saying that this...
Sorry, everybody. That was the wrong one.
It happens. I mean, nobody expects professionals here, right?
Malfunction at the junction.
And I mean,
there we
really,
go.
Nobody's really watching, so who cares?
Here is the Ambassador Bridge that you may have heard so much about during the inquiry if you were watching. It spans the American-Canadian border. It's the largest border crossing spanning the Canadian-American border. They're well funded. They do their best to keep illegal guns out. Last year they seized 751 at the border crossing after the Ambassador Bridge coming from the United States. Pretty tremendous numbers, but the thing is, although there's great diligence there, great training, great programs, that doesn't mean anything out here. The Tomophobia River forms a considerable portion of the border between Quebec and Vermont. The townships of Derby, Vermont, and Stansted, Quebec, share this unique body of water. And here you can find border crossings such as this one, as if a road closed sign is going to keep anybody from smuggling guns across the border. There are a number of services that these two townships share, one of them being a very famous library, the Haskell Free Library, which straddles the American-Canadian border. Quite literally. The door is on the American side, and so Canadians are allowed to cross over the border in order to enter the library. The border even intersects the library right down the middle. There's books on both sides. It's a wonderful sharing environment. Until somebody figures out how to exploit that system. One such case put 104 guns on Montreal streets.
All right, so what went on there is that it was a classic dead drop. For those of you who don't know what a dead drop is, there was a gentleman from northern Quebec. His girlfriend was from Florida. So he got his girlfriend's brother, I believe, to bring 5 handguns up. He went to the library. The brother went into the library, into the bathroom. They both had identical backpacks. He dropped off a backpack with guns in it, and he picked up the backpack with money in it that was already sitting there. He left with the same backpack he entered with. The other guy grabbed the backpack that looked exactly the same that he had brought, and the two went their separate ways. And 5 more guns went onto Canadian streets. They did this 4 times until an officer asked them why they were coming to that library so often. And so they decided instead that she would drop her boyfriend off a few miles from the border in a nearby border crossing, that one that you saw in the video that said road closed. He walked across the border. He met up with the Padres from Florida on the other side, and he came back over and she picked him up and off they went. And when they were finally busted, it was a sting operation on a Hells Angels chapter in Laval, Quebec. Well, this is like Montreal, essentially. Laval and Montreal are the same. And they had 104 of the guns there were attributed to him. He did a plea and copped to all of it. I think he's serving 4.5 years jail time for that. But that's how simple it is and how easy it is for them to get guns over the border. And so when you consider this Gun Control Act, or when you're talking to somebody about it who you think maybe is amenable to reconsideration of their opinion on the matter, or if you're talking to a local member of government or sending an email, what you should mention is we can outlaw the handguns all we like, and the guns are going to get over our very poorly covered border, and probably at greater and greater numbers. All we'll really do is create a high demand velocity, and then there'll be more people smuggling them over because it'll be more profitable to do so. So we could actually make illegal gun uptake in Canada go up as a result of banning all handguns in Canada. So that's one thing that you should take a look at, and it's a pretty important piece. I mean, you got to have a secure border, even if you're not worried about crazy Americans coming over the border, which you should be in some cases. You still, the simple fact is, guns are going to get smuggled in.
Yeah, we're going to expand on crazy Americans coming over the border here pretty soon. But Jay, just in regards to, we already mentioned this in the stream, and I just want to reiterate the fact that no crimes are committed, no crimes in general are committed with legally purchased firearms. And this, at the end of the day, this most law-abiding portion of our country is who the Liberal government is trying to vilify and trying to demonize and criminalize. So that is my whole ending to that. That is my whole point to that. I don't need to expand on that any more than that. That's the simple fact.
Yeah.
So it's not a common sense gun law. It's not common sense. It's not any sense at all. And so just, if I could leave just with that, that's, really
basic logic. Basic logic doesn't necessarily mean the presence of common sense.
No,
they are not simpatico. Something can be logical, but not really make any sense when you actually think like an adult.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to remember that all of this is programmed fear. It's very easy to see.
And vote by. Straight up vote
by. Well, because if you're not exposed to the reality of it, and you just see what you're programmed to see via Hollywood, via the mainstream media, from your politicians, from mainstream media, when they misreport and completely botch their reporting to make it support a liberal agenda, this is what you're programmed by. So keep in mind that you only see what's in front of your face unless you open your eyes.
Extremely large cities like the GTA, they become, after a time, they actually live in a bubble. It's actually a bubble where they don't actually get what is going on outside of that. That's their reality, that bubble, and you can see this throughout the world. It's not just New Yorkers, it's not just people in LA or GTA. Any major city around the world that's that big, that's that self-contained, it starts to be a vacuum, right? And that is what happens. Urbanism You know, it's one of the arguments for why people shouldn't live in centers that large, because you actually lose touch with everything surrounding you, including the land that grows your goddamn food, and you start disrespecting that and shitting on that. And how far do you think you're going to get? You're going to starve, right? Like, don't get in a war with farmers. They'll starve you out. Like, that's
Well,
it's
I
that
mean,
simple.
an important note to that, just as a little comment here, they're promoting 15-minute cities. So how blind to the rest of the world do you think you're going to be then? When it's
That'll
not
even
just
more, yeah.
when it's
Yeah,
not
you're
just
right.
when it's you know what, like so it's not just that you don't really need to go to the country, is you don't need to go to the country. You don't need to leave the city. You don't need to leave your block area, because you've got everything you need right here. Don't leave this area.
Yeah. What is
This
wrong with
where
your
we want you to
neighborhood?
be. Yeah.
Stay in your neighborhood, comrade. There is no need to go outside of this. Yeah.
And if you see it under the guise of some sort of saving the planet thing, if I don't leave my 15-minute city, then I'm going to save the planet. Well, I mean, you're probably a fucking liberal. So that's all I've got
Yeah.
to say about that.
We'll just go to Mars and leave them here. It's fine. Yeah, stay. Do whatever.
So I have discovered a couple of ways to piss off libtards, and I mean libtards in general, anywhere in the world. If you're
Yeah.
currently supporting the leftist Marxism that's taking place on our planet, go fuck yourself. And I'm going to find as many ways to piss you off as I can today and
Yeah.
moving forward. And
Yeah.
the
And we're
first
not
thing
we're not prejudiced that way. We're not discriminatory.
No.
We will piss off people who voted for Manuel Sharon. You know, we're equal opportunity that way.
Yeah.
The Sleepy Joe voters. You know, you have a place in pissed off country too, right?
in our hearts, in general, is one way to put it. And I can tell you, so you guys know and in every stream at the bottom of the screen, you'll see here some information. Some of it's relevant, some of it's just nonsense. But our socials are on there. And I haven't seen any of you join our Telegram page, and I would like for you to be on that page so you'll know what we're going to talk about, because I put everything on there. And we're not censored on Telegram, so I can put other things on there that we can't say here in the stream. So please keep that in mind. Secrets.
Yeah.
We can't. Well, careful. We could have CSIS watching the stream, so you can't say too much here.
Yeah.
But either way, so our socials are at the bottom, as well as a few things here at the bottom. So please read that. There are some things that are important there. Some of it's subject matter, and some of it's important.
And head over to GoFundMe and sign on the diagonal line to support Jamie McKenzie, please.
Yeah, please. If that is not in the
Jeremy
ticker here,
Jeremy McKenzie. Jesus, I do that every time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We knew who you meant. I mean, it's hard to miss. He's all over everything.
Yeah. I know a guy named Jamie McKenzie. That's the problem. Yeah. And now it's a famous name too because of that godforsaken Outlander show. What is it?
Jesus. You know another way you can piss off a libtard is especially if you hurt their feelings, and there's easy ways to do that. We've covered some of this already in the stream. The other way you can really piss them off is if they have hurt feelings, is suggest MAID. I mean, that's the solution that the current liberal government's suggesting for a lot of people with just hurt feelings in general. I mean, damaged feelings, traumatic feelings, but still just hurt feelings. And they're going to suggest to you just, well, you know, if you're really that hurting in the heart, why don't we just kill you? Fuck it. I mean, just end it all.
Yeah.
Why
And
would you want to feel bad? Just end it all.
I don't know how it took so well. I do know how it took so long. So because the media sucks so bad, the United States is essentially the United States and England seem to be just finding out about MAID now. And so I'm suddenly all of a sudden in podcasts, I'm seeing like this wave of people going like, Canada's really messed up, right? Like they've got this really dictatorial leader and they're suiciding people at like a record pace. Like at this stage, we're going to surpass Switzerland for euthanasia in 10 years, and they've been doing it for 30 fucking years.
I actually read that today. That's hilarious, Jay, that you brought that up. Sharp guy.
read
Sharp guy,
it?
everybody. Yeah, I
You
did.
read
I
it?
read that today. It's so fucking funny. On
I
Reddit.
found that shit myself yesterday. I won that. I got
No,
first.
I
got the
saw
first.
it on Reddit yesterday.
Oh yes. Okay.
Did you find it on Reddit?
No. I
There's
was
a graphic. There's a graphic. I'll
No.
show you the after the stream. I'll show
okay.
you the graphic.
Oh,
I
okay.
think they actually showed that.
No, I was just looking like I just hardcore look at stats. Like I look at
Somebody
well,
was-
I read 5 or 6 peer-reviewed articles a day, and so a lot of
Somebody was
times like
hacking your screen, brother.
maybe motherfuckers, motherfuckers. I'm calling Barnes. I'm calling Barnes. If you're listening,
Yeah.
Barnes is coming for you, and he's smoking a big fat cigar.
So, Jesus. You want to know another way to piss off a libtard, and somebody else that has mentioned that perhaps there's some problems in Canada is our friend over at Fox News. And Jay, I'm going to roll this first clip if you don't mind. Tucker Carlson has decided that perhaps there's some problems in Canada, and here we'll just roll this. This is a quick one here, a minute, I think. Here we go.
I have to ask you about Canada and what we saw happen there last winter, the trucker protests, and then the crackdown by the authoritarian government of Canada. What struck you about that?
I thought you were going to ask me whether Trudeau is Castro's son, or if
He very much obviously is, and I'm completely in favor of a Bay of Pigs operation to liberate that country. I mean, why should we stand back and let our biggest trading partner, the country with which we share the longest border, and actually, I could just say a great country. I love Canada. I've always loved Canada because of its natural beauty. Why should we let it become Cuba? Like, why don't we liberate it? We're spending all this money to liberate Ukraine from the Russians. Why are we not sending an armed force north to liberate Canada from Trudeau? And I mean it.
Well, I don't know.
But then you don't have to answer
Yeah,
that.
I don't know that I'm there yet with you.
I'm just talking myself into a frenzy here.
There's
Tucker slays me, man.
There's Tucker on Fox News, and so all of us here watching, I think we can all agree, I hope, that is very much a joke. Tucker Carlson is trying to be quite funny there, and I thought it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those. My sister says that's funny, but it ain't no joke, because it's like, yeah, it's a joke.
No. Well,
but
okay.
It's ironic.
So exactly. I know Tucker was kidding, but I will tell you that about 6 months ago, I said to myself, we just need the states to roll in here and reestablish a proper democracy. And I'm not even kidding. And you can all hate on me for this, and I don't care. Like, I mean, the Canadian Anti-Hate Network is seeking out people to hate. So come find me, hate on me for saying this, but we're fucked in this country right now. And at least there's still a chance for a proper sort of form of democracy in the States. Here, there's almost no chance left because all of you at home are fucking checked out. You're all like, well, I didn't get enough likes on my last picture on Instagram. Instead of paying attention to what goes on with the Emergencies Act inquiry. And Jay, we're going to cover that next time. You've got some stats. We saw some cool graphics and some really very interesting and eye-opening polls. So we'll talk about that on the next stream because I think that's something that we should really cover. But I want to get back to this. I want to get back to something more funny because it's one of those days that if I'm not funny, I'm going to try and piss off more people. And so what I find hilarious here, Jay, is that Tucker was kidding. And I think it's quite clear that Tucker was kidding. Everybody laughed. All of us laughed. I thought it was fucking hilarious. I did say I had wished for that, but and I'm not kidding. But
all
Tucker
the
was
multi-celled organisms thought it was funny.
Right. And I'm going to bring up something here, Jay. So give me a second to, I think this is, okay, here we go. If this works. All right. You should have, can you see my screen here?
Yeah, screen share is good. Sorry, I forgot us signals. Yeah.
So here is in response by the NDP Party of Canada. Here is a tweet they put out yesterday. The Conservatives blocked our motion to condemn Tucker Carlson, who called for U.S. armed forces to invade and liberate Canada. You can't write this shit, people. You cannot write this shit. I mean, these are the people that are apparently democratically elected to lead you. And here's their response on Twitter officially. I mean, this is not, they're not kidding. Tucker was kidding. They're not kidding. So he goes on to say, instead of standing up for Canada, the Conservatives sided with Tucker Carlson and his attack on our democracy. Shame on you, Pierre Poilievre. I mean,
not to mention that the only way that you could ban Tucker Carlson is to ban Fox News, which is not ever going to happen because they will sue the fucking shit out of Canada. We can't allow that to happen.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. But more to the point here is that think of the level of, like, I mean, for somebody to actually consider this a serious thing, you must have the IQ of a broken toenail. I mean, fucking dude, come on. Pull your head out of your ass. You're actually going to table a bill in the House of Commons because you were hurt by something somebody said? This is the state we're at in this fucking country, where hurt feelings dictate policy. How did we get here? How the fuck did we get here?
Yeah.
It's insane to me that that was actually something, a discussion point in the House of Commons in this country was my feelings were hurt because Tucker Carlson made a fucking joke. Like, and this is a real thing. I mean, you just saw it. This is a real thing. I'm not making this up. And these are the people you voted for. Whoever voted NTP, you should be fucking ashamed of yourself in Hamilton. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I think Jordan Peterson said it best when he said, you know, one of the signs with tyranny, you know, when the tyrants are actually ready to mobilize their plan, when they start going after comedians. Because when you're going after laughter, there's not too much human left there. You're dealing with serious sociopathic tendencies at that point. You know.
Yeah. Not only are you going after freedom of expression, but that you're also going to try and silence humor because it may or may not offend you, because you can, I mean, it will offend you because you can find anything to be fucking offended by. But I mean, literally, you're going to end all forms of any humor or anything that doesn't align with your views. That is not free speech. That is not fucking democracy. That is Marxism. Fuck up, people. Jesus. All right, let's get back to it here. Tucker had a response to this, and I want to roll this. It's rather amusing. Or actually, no, wait. I'm going to roll this. There was a response. You guys have heard of the Young Turks, probably. Those of you out there who haven't, look them up. For a laugh. They had some response to this, and here they are. I think they're quite serious here, too. But here they are in response to this. Here we go.
Yeah.
The scary part about Tucker Carlson is that he is so influential with the right that if he wants to keep this up, if he wants to continue saying invade Canada, we'll be like 2 weeks away from a Republican politician showing up at the UN with a little vial saying, this is Canada. They've got these weapons of mass destruction. We need to liberate them, to save. I mean, that is sadly how influential Tucker Carlson could be and is actually.
The last thing I'm going to do is pretend somebody is serious when they're joking, right? And I would never say like a joke and then go, I mean it, and then leave it at that. Because then you would think that I mean it, right? No, he's not joking.
Isn't that
unbelievable? I mean,
well, I mean, everything that he just said about Tucker Carlson, I would redirect toward Greta Thunberg. I mean,
Greta Thunberg.
You want to talk about somebody making, like, somebody who's not even intelligent on any level, convincing having a huge following and being able to move the needle that way. 12-year-old fucking girl. You know, that moved many people's opinion around, just some tantrum having 12-year-old girl. And it's like, you're bitching about something that you're way more guilty of.
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin stands there and gripes and bitches and flaps his arm around in his mouth and face and all this about gun control for fucking decades. Now he's going to go to jail for 5 years for fucking shooting somebody to death on a movie set of all the people to fucking and did anybody hear about that? No, we're keeping that quiet. We're not talking about Alec Baldwin's little trip to the pokey.
No.
Fuck me.
No. We wouldn't want to do that. What would that gain us, right?
Yeah. One of the production assistants rolled on him. Did plea deal.
Yeah.
And
the whole plea deal thing. Now getting back to this here, I just want to touch on there was something more here I was gonna talk about. So there's a response from Liberal Minister Mark Gerritsen here.
Oh yeah.
And I want to show this for those of you at home. I'm going to read it as well because some of you won't be watching this, but just give me 1 second here. This is some more shit you just can't write. You cannot write this. And I love that the NDP and the House of Commons in general, all these politicians give us this stuff because it makes it easy. They make it easy. And so here is Mark Gerritsen responding. So what he says here is, watch how Conservative MPs reject an NDP motion to call on the House of Commons to condemn comments made by Fox News personality Tucker Carlson to use the U.S. Armed Forces to liberate Canada of Justin Trudeau. And I mean, it's quite funny. And to me, that these people take this seriously, and seriously enough that they tabled a bill, and then seriously enough that they responded on Twitter. This guy right here, notice he's got a flag of Ukraine here. I wonder what that's about. But I just find it funny that these people are tabling a bill over hurt feelings. I find it funny, and I say funny, but I don't really mean funny. It's not funny anymore at this point. It's really not funny that this is the people that are leading our country and that people voted them in. Neither of those things are funny whatsoever. It's actually quite sad and incredibly scary. However, I'm going to roll Tucker's response here because let's lighten the mood a little bit. Tucker's always funny. And remember, libtards, he was trying to be funny. So don't get butthurt. Roll Tucker here.
Because all the people who care about their own rights have left, Canada under Justin Trudeau has become effectively a dictatorship. And we don't like dictatorships. We're America. We liberate dictatorships. That's what we do. So we ask the obvious question, why don't we just liberate Canada? It's a fair question, and honestly, we thought the Canadians would be flattered because they're always flattered when you talk about them. They're like stalkers. You don't know they exist, but they've got pictures of you in their dorm room. So if you do a Canada joke on TV, they go absolutely crazy. They don't really know how to handle it or what it means, but it doesn't matter. They're excited. And that's true even in the Canadian Parliament. Apparently, there's so little going on in Canada, like civil liberties, that if you tell a joke about Canada, they go bonkers. Watch this Canadian, quote, member of Parliament try to get some kind of resolution passed condemning this show.
Mr. Speaker, after consultation with the parties in the House, if you seek it, I believe you will find unanimous consent for the following motion. That given the rise of far-right and associated violent extremism led to the attempted insurrection in the United States, the House condemns recent comments made by Fox News personality Tucker Carlson in which he suggests U.S. armed forces liberate Canada from the current Prime Minister.
All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. Nay, I'm afraid we don't have unanimous consent.
By the way, it failed, and we don't want to be too picayune or anything, but we did not suggest the armed forces liberate Canada. You're flattering yourself, Canadian Member of Parliament. We wouldn't need the armed forces. A couple of your college roommates just ran up the sled dogs and you wouldn't be able to move. We're not actually going to do it just yet. It's something to think about. Settle down.
So you've got this fucking loser who looks like he's never exercised in his fucking life standing up and saying, I'm insulted as a politician and as a Canadian in general, that Tucker Carlson suggested coming to invade Canada. Now, I find the humor in it, I do, but it should also be a sign, I think, to everybody that this is where our democracy here in Canada is at. That not only is it funny a little bit, but it's also true. I think some of the funnier things you hear in life are often true.
What's stunning to me is that this person's clearly later in the Gen X era. Like, so he's old enough that, like, how did this guy survive during the reign of Dennis Leary and George Carlin and Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy and Dave Chappelle? How did he get through that? Like, how did he not have a brain aneurysm and die many years ago when comedians could freely just roast the shit out of you no matter what? And Gutfeld lights us up every night, but nobody's going after Gutfeld because he's the king of late night since August 17th, 2022.
Yep, and rightfully so. The guy's fucking hilarious, and everything he says, almost without exception, I think is accurate.
Yeah.
Except for when he's trying to be inaccurate on purpose.
Yeah, he's very great at tongue-in-cheek.
He is.
He's the only one who's been covering the teacher with the 36Z breast implants in Ontario, right? He's the only one who's been covering that.
Yeah, 36Z.
36Z, yeah.
So breast implants that are like a cartoon.
Yeah, well, it's
cartoon gone
hentai.
bad. And,
yeah, it's
and
like
this guy's
Japanese
walking around-
porn.
And I heard a report that like Japanese porn but worse. But I heard a report that he was actually doing it to stick a thumb or stick a finger out to the school board, that he wasn't actually transitioning. I heard there was a report I heard somewhere about that. I don't know if that's true or not, but I heard that.
Nobody can confirm or deny anything related to that because it's before a hearing and has been for some time. So like we don't even get to know for like the longest time because our silly judicial system. Well, in that case, it's the school board, so it's different. I guess they can have their closed cabinet, fucking whatever.
Now, to any of those of you that are at home and you're offended by what we've said tonight, read down here in the stream. We have a solution for you. It's down here in the stream. And if you're a resident of Canada, apparently it's pretty easy to get. So just, call that MAID hotline. I think it's 1-800. I wish we had theme music for this. Call us now at 1-800-MAID Canada, and we will provide a solution for you that may or may not be conducive to life.
Yeah,
unbelievable. This is where we're at. And I mean, the sign of Marxism is sort of like the signs of Marxism rather is sort of like being broadcasted to you every day, increasingly. And yet somehow either none of you ever read any history books or ever studied any politics other than, well, actually, I don't know what politics you could have studied if you think anything that's going on in our country is appropriate or acceptable. However, somehow either none of you read anything in your lives, or you're so fucking afraid to stand up and say something and do something that you'd rather just let mainstream media and politicians that you couldn't trust with your life or anybody's life or your money run the country and decide for you what is going to happen. And this is what's going on right now. They're deciding for you what's going to happen. I'd like to think that not all liberals really fully support all of the ideology that's being propagandized on the country and on the population. I'd like to think that not all of you actually support this, but you're kind of trying to be more supportive and inclusive, but you don't really think all of it is appropriate. And I am 100% for one who believes that respect should be given to those that don't fit into an exact mold of what we expect society to be. So I'm not saying society shouldn't be inclusive. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be differences in people. What I'm saying is when you start to mutilate genitals of preteens, and when you promote the idea of sexual activity in, 6-year-old children and grade 1 kids,
Yeah.
that's not a healthy society. And if you want to argue that with me, feel free to sound off. I've got all day long. But there's no moral person, unless you're trying to groom, unless you're a pedophile trying to groom children, there's no moral person that would support the notion of sexualizing little fucking children. And that's what's going on in our country. And yet somehow we're standing by and we're letting it happen.
Did you read about this one? This Fakakta, they busted that somewhere in the States they were teaching 12-year-olds about consent.
Yep.
Like sexual consent.
Yep.
For what reason we don't know.
Did you? Yeah. Yep. I did read that. Did you also see the news article covered? And I'll show it to you later. I wish I would have brought it because I didn't know we would get on the subject, but there was several books with or demanded deleted from a library in a private school district. And they were so sexually explicit that I don't dare discuss them even now because they make me a little bit sick. And they were not restricted from, grade 1 kids. And, a long time ago, I know when I was a kid, it was rare to be able to even find porn. And I'm not saying that porn isn't healthy. It's fine. But when that's all you know, when you become a fat fucking loser like the politician we just saw, that, probably watches a lot of porn and pays for it like a fucking moron, and you start to think, well, all these women in society are fucked up. No, it's because you're a fucking loser. Get a job. Do something for society. Be a man. Don't stand there in the House of fucking Commons and go, I have hurt feelings, so I want to table a bill to condemn a comedic news reporter. He's really more of a comedian than anything else. That is where we're at in fucking society, and you should all be sad to support any of this. And I think I've pissed off everybody I can in this stream at this point.
Well, I don't think you pissed off at least 2 of the people that are watching. I know two are in full agreement with you. So there you go. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's one other thing I wanted to mention, just touch on briefly. Because it just came up in my research. Sort of my research. I was reading The White Pill by Michael Malice, and I really recommend everybody to do that. One important thing that he says is take the red pill, but don't take the whole bottle. Just take one, because otherwise you'll end up cynical and fucked up. But the other part is, we get the term, like we've all heard the term political correctness since the 80s, right? Politically correct this, politically correct that. Now, the term politically correct was created by Joseph Stalin in 1936 as a Soviet propaganda tool. And this is what you would express to citizens, essentially when they were saying things that were factual, but were not in support of the Soviet doctrine. They weren't supportive of the system. And so basically the gist of it was, and this is how Stalin and his cronies expressed it to the media, what we're saying is, it doesn't matter if it's factual. Even if it's factual, it hurts the state in some way. And so we can't have it being said at all, words and things. And 45 years later, that gets adopted by Marxist people in North America who think, oh yeah, we agree with Joseph Stalin from 1936 when he was starving 3 million Ukrainians to death, literally, intentionally, genocide. And we should do that same thing here. We should be politically correct. We should say, you can, that is a fact. There's no untruth to it, but it's not right that you say it because it hurts people or the machine or the overlords or whatever. So That's how pervasive and pernicious the concept of politically correct is, and it's why some of us are constantly running up against the boundary that says that's politically incorrect and bumping into it. And why, Jordan Peterson and people like that have kind of pushed that bubble out a little bit, because we have to be able to express openly and freely. We have to. We have to.
Here is the Ambassador Bridge that you may have heard so much.
That's very important. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. If you weren't aware of who came up with that, it was not an American politician. It wasn't a neoliberal. It wasn't a feminist. It was Joseph Stalin. 1936, while starving 3 million Ukrainians to death. That's pretty much all I have to say about that, folks.
There you go. If you're down for Marxism, just wait for what's coming, kids. Wait for what's coming. You're doing fine right now, though. Keep voting in the politicians you're voting for, because they're doing a great job at, just literally bleeding the country dry completely for generations. More debt than all other governments combined in our country right now that was created by the fucking Justin Trudeau government. More debt than all governments combined previously in our country. A lot of you don't know that. That's what you're looking at. So that is multi-generational debt right there. And it's quite likely that the Ukraine will default on all the funding and all the weapons and everything else that they got as a loan. So add that in there, plus all the interest. All of you are going to be paying for that, as will I, as will all of your children, and probably their children and their children.
Yeah.
So just think about where we're at in society and where our politicians have led us, and perhaps think about maybe making a fucking change in how you vote. Because
send an email once in a while. Send an
email. Sign a petition. Lord knows we can't protest in this fucking country because we'll get trampled by horses and pepper sprayed and gun and butt stroked in the street. So don't protest, but do something else. Something Actually, fuck it. Protest. Go fucking stand in front of every goddamn conservative legislation or every, parliamentary legislature building everywhere. Do it. Because, at this point, I don't think we have any other choice.
Here's another thing. Here's another thing I think people should do. If you live in a riding where the NDPs are in power, even if you didn't vote NDP, email your local politician and tell them, as a stakeholder in an NDP riding, I'm ashamed that you formed this sinister coalition halfway through an election cycle with a party that I didn't elect, and make it clear to them that their continued coalition with the Liberals is going to hurt them. You have to hit them in the vote. If you want to get at a banker, if you want to get at a corporation, you hit them in the wallet. You want to get at a politician, you hit them in the vote. You have to pick and choose your shots. You have to take good shots, and if there's any chance of taking one, take one. And that's it. If you live in an NDP riding, rock the boat however you can. I live in a conservative riding. I don't know how, it's BC, but it happens. And
tell me about it. The capital of the NDP is here in BC, ashamedly. So we're almost out of time here, guys. So before we get going, I want to bring up a couple of comments here. Here's first of all, who is this from? Oh, well, we'll bring up Heather's comment because Heather's always good for a laugh. Stands on police car ready to chuck grenade. Oh wait, no, that's what Liberals do. That's so good. I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
And so here, I want to. This is actually a good point. This one here is, let's put bets down on who did it worse: Joseph Stalin, Captain Socks, Biden, Mr. Orange, or Hitler. And I would say that out of all of those, I choose Mr. Orange Man any day of the week times 10. I hope that anybody else in the world would consider that the right choice. However, we're talking about comparing some of the worst leaders in history, and I'm not including Trump in that list.
Stalin's body bag, or body count is the
Stalin's
highest.
the worst. Yeah, Stalin's is the worst for
People think Hitler's
150 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere between. Well, what makes it worst of all actually is that we don't even know the number because it was so.
Right.
The information was so guarded that it's between 60 and 150 million, which is awful. So yeah, no, but China actually has done worse in the Mao should be on that list because China was the worst of them all.
Yeah. And again, we don't really know what goes on in China, but we're getting up on a different subject here. Maybe Jay, what are you? I think I'm done here. Are you done?
I'm done.
All right. We're gonna call it there tonight, kids. It's been a slice. All of you liberals out there, eat a giant bag of dicks.
Yeah.
Anybody whose feelings I hurt, get over yourself because most of this was humor or not. I'm serious though, not really. Maybe kind of. Who knows? Just to confuse you. We are the Unacceptables. We'll be back Sunday at 8:00 p.m. Pacific time. I hope you had fun. We did. Much disrespect and hatred. And have a good night, kids.
I'll leave you with a quote from the great Dostoevsky. If all of humanity lived within a bubble of perfection, and there was no crime, disease, murder, hunger, or any resistance of any kind, we would immediately go around and light as many fires as possible because we need resistance and we need challenges in order to live.
Excellent. And my final statement will be, if you really want to know how to piss off a libtard, just suggest Made.